The morning sun shone through the windows of New Seoul Central Hospital as Sunmi Kim adjusted the IV drip for her elderly patient. The old man had been upset and confused all night, but as soon as Sunmi smiled at him, his breathing slowed and his tense muscles relaxed. "There you go, Mr. Park. You will feel better soon," she said softly. The man looked up at her with grateful eyes. "How do you do that? One smile from you and the pain seems less important." Sunmi shrugged. This happened often. Her smile had always had a strange effect on people. Since she was a child, she could calm angry classmates or cheer up sad friends just by smiling at them. As a nurse, this gift made her special. Doctors often sent their most difficult patients to her ward. "Some people just have a way about them," said Dr. Lee, who had entered the room quietly. "Sunmi has magic in her smile." After finishing her rounds, Sunmi walked to the staff room for her break. The hospital was busy as always. Patients filled every room, many suffering from the new stress disease that affected so many people in the overcrowded city. New Seoul had grown too fast in the past 10 years. Now 15 million people lived pressed together in tall buildings that blocked the sun. As Sunmi poured herself a cup of tea, she noticed two strangers watching her from across the room, a tall man in an expensive black suit and a woman with sharp eyes and perfect posture. They did not look like doctors or patients' families. The woman approached her. "Miss Kim Sunmi? My name is Ji-young Park. I represent Hanul Biotech. May we speak with you privately?" Sunmi felt uneasy but nodded. They moved to a small meeting room where the man introduced himself as Taiwan Kang, Senior Recruitment Director. "We have been watching your work for some time," said Ji-young. "Your patient satisfaction scores are the highest in the country." Sunmi shifted in her seat. "I just do my job." "No," said Taiwan firmly. "What you do is special. We have studied the records. Patients in your care recover 30% faster than average. Their pain medication needs drop by 25%, and the effect is strongest with patients who have direct contact with you." Sunmi had never seen these numbers. "That cannot be right." Ji-young placed a tablet on the table showing graphs and data. "We believe you have a rare neurobiological gift. Something in your presence, specifically your smile, triggers a positive chemical response in others. We want to study this, and we want to use it to help people on a much larger scale." "What exactly is Hanul Biotech?" Sunmi asked. "We develop medical technology with various applications," Taiwan said smoothly. "Some for hospitals, some for military medical units. Our current project involves developing better ways to treat trauma in conflict zones." Sunmi frowned. "Military? Medical support only," Ji-young said quickly. "Imagine helping soldiers with battle shock or civilians caught in war zones. Your natural ability could be the key to breakthrough treatments." They offered her a job with a salary 5 times what she currently earned. She would have her own research team and state-of-the-art labs. All she had to do was participate in tests and help develop what they called empathic response therapy. "I need time to think," Sunmi said. "Of course," Ji-young handed her a card. "We will expect your answer by the end of the week." After they left, Sunmi finished her shift in a daze. That night in her small apartment, she researched Hanul Biotech. The company was huge, controlling much of New Seoul's medical industry and working closely with the United Korean Federation military. They had made incredible advances in genetic medicine and neural technology. Working there could mean helping thousands instead of dozens of patients. By the end of the week, Sunmi had made her decision. She called the number on the card. 3 weeks later, Sunmi stood in front of the massive Hanul Biotech building. The glass tower stretched so high that its top disappeared into the morning mist. Security guards checked her ID and directed her to the medical research wing on the 42nd floor. Dr. Do-hyun Choi met her at the elevator. He was older than she expected, with streaks of gray in his black hair and deep lines around his eyes. "Miss Kim, welcome to Project Sunshine," he said, shaking her hand firmly. "I am the director of special projects here. I have followed your case with great interest." "My case?" Sunmi asked. "Your unique ability. he explained as he led her down a wide hallway. Staff in white lab coats nodded respectfully as they passed. We have identified only 11 people worldwide with your level of empathic projection. You are the strongest we have found. They entered a large laboratory filled with expensive equipment. Scientists worked at stations around the room. One wall was lined with screens showing brain scans and data streams. This will be your primary workplace, said Dr. Choi. In the mornings, we will run tests to map your neurological patterns. In the afternoons, you will work with test subjects to measure your empathic effect. Over the next few days, Sunmi underwent countless tests. They scanned her brain while she smiled at distressed patients. They measured her skin secretions and analyzed her breath. They recorded her facial movements with high-speed cameras and mapped every muscle that moved when she smiled. The work was interesting, but exhausting. Sometimes she wondered if she had made the right choice leaving her hospital job. One evening, working late, Sunmi noticed something odd. Certain areas of the facility required special keycards. Guards stood at these doorways day and night. When she asked what happened in those sections, Dr. Choi always gave vague answers about other research projects. On her third week, Sunmi was heading to the break room when an alarm sounded briefly. A security door that was usually locked slid open as a team of technicians rushed out. Before it closed again, Sunmi glimpsed into the forbidden room. What she saw made her blood freeze. Row after row of large glass tanks filled the room. Each tank contained what looked like a sleeping person suspended in clear liquid. As the door was closing, Sunmi saw one face clearly, a face identical to her own. The door sealed shut with a hiss. Sunmi stood frozen in the hallway, her heart pounding. Had she really seen what she thought she saw? Faces that looked exactly like hers. Miss Kim, are you all right? It was Dr. Choi suddenly beside her. Yes, I just felt dizzy for a moment, she lied. He studied her face carefully. Perhaps you should go home early today. You have been working very hard. That night, Sunmi could not sleep. She kept seeing those faces, her faces floating in tanks. What was Hanul Biotech really doing with her tests? Why would they need copies of her? As dawn broke over the city, Sunmi made a decision. She would find out the truth behind Project Sunshine, no matter what it took. If they had somehow copied her, she needed to know why. And she needed to know what they planned to do with her smile. Sunmi barely slept that night. The image of her own face floating in those tanks haunted her. By morning, she had made up her mind to confront Dr. Choi directly. She arrived at the Hanul Biotech building earlier than usual. The morning security team recognized her and let her through without question. Her heart pounded as the elevator climbed to the 42nd floor. Dr. Choi was already in his office reviewing data on his large screen. He looked surprised to see Sunmi so early. Dr. Choi, I need to talk to you, she said firmly. Her hands were shaking, but she kept her voice steady. Yesterday I saw something when that security door opened. I saw people in tanks, people who looked like me. Dr. Choi's face changed. The friendly smile disappeared. He tapped a button on his desk and the glass walls of his office turned dark, blocking the view from outside. Please sit down, Miss Kim, he said. His voice was calm but serious. I had hoped to explain this to you gradually, but now I see we must talk openly. What are you doing in there? Are those clones of me? Sunmi remained standing, ready to run if needed. Dr. Choi sighed heavily. Yes, they are biological copies created from your cell samples. But they are not fully human in the way you understand. They are medical support units we are developing for conflict zones. You took my cells without permission? That is illegal. Sunmi's voice rose. The medical release form you signed on your first day included consent for cell sampling. Most people never read the small print. Dr. Choi stood up and walked to a wall screen. Please let me show you what we are really doing here. He turned on the screen, displaying images of wounded soldiers and crying civilians in what looked like a war zone. The United Korean Federation is in a cold war with the Pan-Asian Alliance. Border conflicts happen weekly. People die. More suffer from trauma, he explained. Traditional medicine can heal bodies, but healing minds is much harder. He changed the image to show a diagram of a brain with certain areas highlighted. Your brain produces a unique combination of neurochemicals when you smile. Something about your specific facial muscle movements, voice tone, and pheromone release triggers an immediate trust and calm response in others. We cannot reproduce this effect with drugs or machines. We need biological systems. Sunmi slowly sat down, trying to process what she was hearing. So you are making copies of me to send to war zones to help treat trauma patients? Exactly. Think of how many people you could help this way. Not just dozens in your hospital ward, but thousands across conflict areas. Your gift, multiplied. Dr. Choi's eyes were bright with conviction. The medical support units have limited consciousness. They are like biological robots programmed for specific functions. Sunmi shook her head. If what you are doing is so good, why all the secrecy? Why armed guards? Why not tell me from the beginning? Doctor, Choi looked uncomfortable. Cloning technology is controversial. Some countries have banned it, and there are military applications we need to protect. I want to see them properly, Sunmi demanded. All of them. After a long pause, Dr. Choi nodded. Very well, I will. Arrange it. But first I want you to meet someone. He called for a staff member to bring in Jin-Ho Kim, the chief geneticist. Jin-Ho was younger than Sunmi expected, probably in his early 30s. He wore thick glasses and looked nervous meeting her. Jin-Ho is the genius who perfected the replication protocol, Dr. Choi explained. He can answer your technical questions better than I can. Jin-Ho bowed slightly to Sunmi. It is an honor to meet you, Miss Kim. Your genetic structure is remarkable. We have never seen anyone with your particular neurological patterns. There was something in the way Jin-Ho looked at her that made Sunmi feel he was comparing her to the copies he had been working with. It made her uncomfortable. How many clones have you made from my cells? She asked directly. Jin-Ho glanced at Dr. Choi, who nodded permission to answer. 52 viable units so far, Jin-Ho said. The process is difficult and many attempts fail. Your genetic structure is complex. And these clones, do they think? Are they aware of what is happening to them? Jin-Ho shifted uncomfortably. They have basic consciousness, enough to interact with patients and respond to situations, but they are not fully self-aware like you. Something in his voice made Sunmi doubt his words. I want to see the facility now, she insisted. Dr. Choi led Sunmi and Jin-Ho through a series of security checkpoints to reach the restricted area she had glimpsed the day before. Each door required both a key card and fingerprint scan. Armed, guards stood at every entrance. Finally, they entered a vast room filled with rows of glass tanks. In each tank floated what looked like a sleeping version of Sunmi, connected to tubes and monitoring equipment. The room was cold, and the only sounds were the quiet hum of machines and the bubbling of liquid in the tanks. We call this the nursery, Dr. Choi said. This is where the units develop until they are ready for training. Sunmi walked slowly between the rows, looking at each face. They were all recognizable as her, but each was slightly different. Some had longer hair, some had small differences in facial features. Why do they look different if they are clones? She asked Jin-Ho. We modify certain genetic expressions to create variety, he explained. It would be suspicious to have identical units in the field. Also, some traits are enhanced for different purposes. At the end of the room was another secure door. What is in there? Sunmi asked. The training center, Dr. Choi said, where units that have completed physical development learn their medical support functions. Behind this door was a room set up like a hospital ward. About 20 Sunmi clones in medical uniforms were working with what appeared to be injured patients. Some clones were changing bandages, others were monitoring vital signs, and some were simply sitting beside patients, smiling and talking softly, the Yao. Patients are actors, Jin-Ho explained, seeing Sunmi's question before she asked it. They pretend to have various trauma conditions so the units can practice their therapeutic techniques. Sunmi watched as one clone approached a man pretending to have a panic attack. The clone smiled at him in exactly the way Sunmi would smile at her own patients. Almost instantly, the man began to calm down. "You see how effective it is, Doctor," Choi said proudly. "Now imagine this happening in real conflict zones. Soldiers with combat trauma, civilians with shock, all receiving immediate emotional support that actually works." But as Sunmi watched more closely, she noticed something disturbing. At one station, a clone who failed to calm her patient quickly enough received a small electric shock from a device on her wrist. The clone's face showed pain, but she immediately tried again with an even bigger smile. "You are hurting them," Sunmi said, horrified. "Negative reinforcement speeds learning," Dr. Choi said matter-of-factly. "Remember, these are not people in the full sense. They are medical tools we are perfecting." As they left the training center, Sunmi looked back at her copies. One clone caught her eye and held her gaze for a moment. In that brief connection, Sunmi saw something that chilled her, not limited consciousness but a trapped intelligence silently calling for help. "I need time to think about all this," Sunmi told Dr. Choi as they returned to the main lab. "Of course," he said. "Take the rest of the day off. But remember, this project is classified at the highest level. You cannot discuss it with anyone." As Sunmi left the building, her mind was racing. The project was not what Dr. Choi claimed, she was sure of it. Those clones were more aware than they admitted, and they were being treated like tools, not living beings. And there was something else. Dr. Choi wasn't telling her, something about the real purpose of Project Sunshine. Sunmi was determined to discover the truth. Sunmi could not sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces of her clones, especially the one who had looked at her with such awareness. She needed to know more about what was really happening at Hanyul Biotech. The next morning, she returned to work as if nothing had changed. She smiled at the security guards, at Dr. Choi, at the lab technicians, all while her mind raced with plans. "You seem distracted today," Dr. Choi noted as they ran through the usual morning tests. "I am still processing everything I saw yesterday," Sunmi replied honestly. Dr. Choi nodded. "It is a lot to take in, but remember the greater good we are working toward. Peace through empathic influence rather than violence." Throughout the day, Sunmi watched Jinho from the corner of her eye. Unlike Dr. Choi, the young geneticist seemed uncomfortable with the project. He avoided making eye contact with her and jumped slightly whenever she spoke to him. When most of the staff left for lunch, Sunmi approached Jinho at his workstation. "Can we talk privately?" she asked quietly. Jinho looked nervous but nodded. The east stairwell is usually empty this time of day. They met there 10 minutes later. Jinho kept looking over his shoulder as if expecting to be caught. "The clones have more awareness than Dr. Choi admits, don't they?" Sunmi asked directly. Jinho hesitated, then nodded slowly. "They are fully conscious beings, not just simple medical tools." "Then what you are doing is wrong," Sunmi said. "Creating people, just to use them like machines, hurting them to make them obey." "I know," Jinho whispered. His eyes were sad behind his glasses. "I did not mean for it to happen this way. The project started as true medical research, but then the military took greater interest." "Tell me everything," Sunmi insisted. Jinho explained how Project Sunshine had changed over time. It began as a way to create medical assistance with enhanced empathic abilities. But as the Cold War with the Pan-Asian Alliance grew more tense, military leaders saw another potential. "Your smile does not just calm people," Jinho explained. "It creates trust. Deep, immediate trust." The military realized this could be used for infiltration. Sunmi felt sick. "You mean spying?" "And more," Jinho said. "The clones are being programmed with a secondary function. After gaining trust, they can activate a fear response instead of a calming one. Imagine soldiers suddenly unable to fight, overcome with panic simply from a change in expression from someone they trusted completely." "That is terrible," Sunmi said. "And the clones? Do they know what they are being made to do?" "Some suspect. The more aware ones." Jinho looked at his watch nervously. "I have been working on a way to help them, but I need more access. I need your help." They made a plan. Jin-Ho would create a special access card for Sun-Mi that would let her enter the clone facilities at night. There was one clone in particular he wanted her to meet, the clone designated YH7, who seemed most aware of all. That night, Sun-Mi returned to Hanul Biotech, heart pounding as she used Jin-Ho's card to slip past security. The massive building was mostly empty, with only a few night shift workers in the main areas. She made her way to the restricted section and used the card to enter the training center. The room was dimly lit, with most of the clones sleeping on narrow beds along one wall, but one clone was sitting awake as if waiting for her. It was the same one who had caught her eye the day before. YH7, Sun-Mi whispered. The clone nodded. Up close, Sun-Mi could see small differences between them. YH7 had a tiny scar above her right eyebrow, and her hair was slightly darker. I knew you would come, YH7 said. Her voice was almost identical to Sun-Mi's, but with a slightly different rhythm. We have been waiting for you. We? Sun-Mi asked. All of us, YH7 gestured to the sleeping clones. We are connected in ways the scientists do not understand. We can share thoughts when we are close enough to each other. Sun-Mi sat beside her copy. It was strange, like talking to a twin she never knew she had. Jin-Ho told me what they are really training you for. Not just medical support, but as weapons. YH7 nodded. The smile that heals becomes the smile that harms. They call it reversible empathic manipulation. First make them trust, then make them fear. And they force you to do this? Sun-Mi asked. Through pain and conditioning, yes. But they do not realize that as our awareness grows, so does our resistance. YH7 looked at the other sleeping clones. We pretend to obey while finding ways to fight back. Sun-Mi noticed a small red mark on YH7's wrist where the shock device was normally attached. They hurt you. Pain is their main tool, YH7 said simply. But we are learning to hide our true thoughts. The younger clones are still vulnerable, but those of us who have been awake longer are teaching them. As they talked, Sun-Mi learned more about the clone community. There were now over 50 of them in various stages of training. The first group was nearly ready for deployment to border areas near Pan-Asian Alliance territory. What happens when they deploy you? Sun-Mi asked. YH7's face grew serious. That is what we most fear. The final phase of our conditioning includes a trigger that will force us to obey commands. Once deployed, we will have no choice but to follow orders. There must be something we can do to stop this, Sun-Mi said. There might be. YH7 leaned closer. Jin-Ho has been working on a way to disrupt the conditioning, but we need more time and help from the outside. A noise in the hallway made them both freeze. Someone was coming. Sun-Mi quickly hid behind a supply cabinet as a security guard made his rounds. She held her breath until he left again. You should go, YH7 whispered urgently. But please come back. You are our only hope. Sun-Mi slipped out of the facility the way she had come in. As she walked home through the dark streets of New Seoul, her mind was made up. She had to save the clones somehow. The next morning, she arrived at work to find the lab in chaos. Security personnel were everywhere, and Dr. Choi looked furious. Someone accessed the training center last night, he told the assembled staff. Until we find who is responsible, security measures will be doubled. His eyes rested on Sun-Mi for a moment longer than necessary. Did he suspect her already? Later that day, she passed Jin-Ho in the hallway. He slipped a small data drive into her pocket without breaking stride. Security cameras were disabled last night, he whispered. But they are checking everyone's access. Cards now. Be careful. That evening, Sun-Mi viewed the files on the drive. What she saw horrified her. The true purpose of Project Sunshine was far worse than she had imagined. After gaining trust and triggering fear, the clones would release a bioactive compound through their tears. This compound would spread a wave of psychogenic illness, incapacitating entire military bases without leaving evidence of an attack. It was not just psychological warfare. It was biological warfare disguised as emotional response. And her clones, her copies, would be the unwilling delivery system. Sun-Mi knew she had to act fast. The first deployment was scheduled in just 3 days. Somehow she had to find a way to save the clones and expose the truth about Project Sunshine before it was too late. Sunmi woke before dawn, her mind already racing with plans. The data Jinho had given her proved that Project Sunshine was not a medical program but a weapon system. She needed allies, and she needed them fast. She arrived at Hanul Biotech early, trying to act normal. Security had increased overnight. Guards now checked ID cards twice and cameras tracked everyone's movements. "Miss Kim, please report to Dr. Choi's office immediately," a lab assistant told her as soon as she arrived. Sunmi's heart beat faster. Had they discovered her nighttime visit? She took a deep breath and headed to Dr. Choi's office. Dr. Choi was not alone. A stern-looking military officer stood beside his desk. His uniform showed he was a high-ranking general in the United Korean Federation Forces. "Ah, Sunmi. This is General Kang," Dr. Choi said with a tight smile. "He is very impressed with our progress on Project Sunshine." General Kang looked at Sunmi with cold eyes. "So this is the source material. Impressive that such an ordinary woman contains such extraordinary potential." "Source material?" Sunmi repeated, trying to hide her anger at being described this way. "The deployment has been moved forward," Dr. Choi said. "The first 20 units will be sent to forward bases tomorrow, not next week as planned." "Tomorrow?" Sunmi tried to keep her voice steady. "But I thought the training cycle required at least another 3 days." General Kang waved his hand dismissively. "We have intelligence that Pan-Asian forces are preparing to test our border defenses. We need your units in place immediately. Your presence is required in the final conditioning suite today," Dr. Choi told Sunmi. "We need fresh neurological mapping to complete the program." Sunmi nodded, mind racing. The timeline had suddenly become much shorter. She had hours, not days, to save the clones. As she left the office, she nearly bumped into a security officer in the hallway. He was younger than most guards, with kind eyes that stood out in his serious face. "Excuse me," she said. "No problem," he replied. Then, so quietly she almost missed it, he added, "Be careful around the cameras in Section B. They have blind spots near the fire exits." Before Sunmi could respond, he walked away. Was this another ally, or a trap? Throughout the morning, Sunmi went through the motions of her usual work. During a quick break, she found Jinho in the lab supply room. "They are deploying tomorrow," she whispered urgently. Jinho's face paled. "So soon? I have not finished the disruptor code." "What code?" "A program to break the control signals in the neural implants," Jinho explained quickly. "It could free the clones from external control, but it is only 80% complete." "Can you finish it today?" Sunmi asked. Jinho shook his head. "Maybe, but I need access to the main system, and they are watching me closely now." "I think I found another ally," Sunmi told him about the security officer. Jinho looked thoughtful. "That might be Han Jai. I have seen him looking troubled during the conditioning sessions. Find him again if you can." Later that afternoon, Sunmi was taken to the final conditioning suite. There she saw 20 of her clones seated in a circle. Each wore a thin metal band around their head. Dr. Choi explained these were neural synchronizers, recording Sunmi's brain patterns and transferring them to the clones. "Smile for us, Miss Kim," Dr. Choi instructed. "Your most genuine, calming smile." Sunmi did as asked, watching in horror as her smile was instantly copied by all 20 clones in perfect unison. Then, at a signal from a technician, their expressions changed to something terrible. Still a smile, but somehow wrong. Cold. Threatening. Several test subjects in the room suddenly grabbed their heads and fell to their knees, overcome with unexplained panic. "Perfect," General Kang said. "The transition from trust to terror is seamless." When the session ended, Sunmi pretended to use the restroom. Instead, she slipped down a side hallway, looking for Hanjai. She found him monitoring a security station, alone. "I need your help," she said directly. "I know what they are really doing with the clones." Hanjai looked at her, then at the cameras. He reached under his desk and pressed a button. "We have 2 minutes before the security feed resumes," he said. "I have been watching this project for months. What they are doing is wrong. Can you help Jin-Ho access the main system? He has a program that might free the clones from control." Hanjai thought for a moment. "Yes, but we need a distraction. Something big enough to pull security away from the central server room." They quickly made a plan. At 7 p.m., when the day shift changed with the night shift, Hanjai would create a security alert in the East Wing. This would give Jin-Ho 5 minutes to upload his disruptor code while Sunmi tried to reach YH7 and the other clones. The rest of the day passed in tense waiting. At 6:55 p.m., Sunmi positioned herself near the clone quarters. Jin-Ho was in the server room, pretending to work late. Hanjai was at his station, ready to trigger the alarm. At exactly 7 p.m., alarms blared throughout the facility. A voice on the loudspeaker announced, "Security breach in East Laboratory Complex. All security personnel report immediately." Sunmi used Jin-Ho's access card to enter the clone quarters. Inside, she found YH7 and the others already awake and waiting. "We knew you would come," YH7 said. "We felt a change coming through our connection." "Jin-Ho is uploading a program to break your conditioning," Sunmi explained quickly, "but we do not have much time." "We can help," YH7 said. "Our shared consciousness grows stronger every day. If even one of us is freed from control, we can help the others resist." Suddenly, the lights in the room changed from white to red. The security alert had escalated. "Something is wrong," Sunmi said. "The distraction should have been minor." At that moment, the door burst open. Dr. Choi stood there with armed guards. Behind them, Hanjai was being held by 2 security officers, his face bloody. "I am disappointed, Miss Kim," Dr. Choi said coldly. "You had such an important role to play in peace through strength. Now you are simply a traitor." "The only traitor is you," Sunmi said. "Using my genetic material to create weapons without my consent. These clones are living beings, not tools." "Take her to holding," Dr. Choi ordered the guards, "and prepare this one for immediate memory wipe." He pointed at Hanjai. As the guards grabbed Sunmi, something unexpected happened. YH7 stepped forward, her face calm. "You will not touch her," she said. All around the room, the other clones stood up in perfect unison. Dr. Choi laughed. "Unit YH7, return to your station immediately. Command override Sunshine Alpha 9. YH7 should have obeyed instantly." Instead, she smiled. Not the weaponized smile, but a genuine one. "Your commands no longer control us." In the confusion, Sunmi realized Jin-Ho must have succeeded in uploading his program. The neural connections that had been used to control the clones now served a different purpose. They had become a network linking all the clones together in one powerful consciousness. "You do not understand what you have created," YH7 said to Dr. Choi. "You thought you were making weapons. Instead, you made a new form of shared human consciousness. We are many bodies with one mind now." As if to demonstrate, every clone in the room spoke in perfect unison. "We have her smile, but we have our own minds." The guards looked at each other nervously, unsure what to do. Dr. Choi backed toward the door. "This is not over," he said. "General, Kang and the military will never allow you to leave this facility." But as alarms continued to blare throughout the building, Sunmi felt hope for the first time. Jin-Ho's program had worked better than anyone expected. The clones were free from control and united in purpose. Now they just had to find a way out of a heavily guarded military facility before General Kang decided to destroy everything rather than lose his weapons. Alarms blared throughout the Hanul Biotech building. Security teams ran through hallways as Sunmi, Jin-Ho, Hanjai, and the freed clones gathered in the clone quarters. "The building is being locked down," Hanjai said, wiping blood from his face. "All exits will be sealed in minutes." "And worse," Jin-Ho added, checking his tablet. "I intercepted communications from General Kang. He has ordered a complete facility purge if the clones cannot be contained." "Purge?" Sunmi asked. Destruction of all clone units and research data, Jinho explained grimly. The whole building can be flooded with gas at his command. YH7 stepped forward. All the other clones moved in perfect unison behind her, like dancers in a silent performance. We must reach the main broadcast center, YH7 said. If we can send out what we know about Project Sunshine to the public, the military cannot simply destroy us without questions. The broadcast center is on the top floor, Hanjai said, heavily guarded and probably the first place they secured. There is another way, Jinho suggested. The neural mapping equipment in the final conditioning suite. It was designed to copy brain patterns from Sunmi to the clones, but I believe we could reverse it. To do what? Sunmi asked. To broadcast the clone collective consciousness outward, Jinho explained. Not just to computers or networks, but to human minds within range. YH7 nodded in understanding. We could share our experience directly with others, show them what was done to us, make them feel what we feel. Is that possible? Hanjai looked skeptical. The technology was originally developed to help trauma patients share their experiences with therapists, Jinho said. The military adapted it for the clone program. I can reverse it, but the range would be limited to this building only. Then we need to get important witnesses into the building, Sunmi said. News reporters, government officials, someone who can tell our story. Hanjai thought for a moment. The emergency response protocol. When a major security breach is reported, first responders and government security officials are automatically called to the site. They will be here soon, YH7 said. The other clones nodded together. We need to reach the final conditioning suite, Jinho said, but the halls will be filled with security forces now. YH7 smiled. We have an advantage they do not expect. Our shared mind allows us to coordinate perfectly. The group split up. Hanjai used his security access to disable cameras in their path. Jinho guided them through service corridors less likely to be guarded. The clones moved as a perfect team, some creating distractions while others helped clear the way. When they encountered guards, the clones used their special ability. They smiled their natural, calming smile, not the weaponized version, making the guards hesitate just long enough for Hanjai to disarm them. Finally, they reached the final conditioning suite. Jinho immediately began working on the equipment, rewiring connections and reprogramming the system. I need 10 minutes, he told them. Guard the door. The clones positioned themselves at the entrance while Sunmi helped Jinho. This was never meant to be a weapon, Jinho said sadly as he worked. I wanted to help people share understanding and empathy. The military twisted everything. Suddenly they heard shouting in the hallway. Sunmi looked up to see Dr. Choi approaching, with General Kang and a squad of soldiers. Stop what you are doing immediately, General Kang commanded. This is a matter of national security. The clones formed a human barrier at the door. The soldiers raised their weapons. Wait, Sunmi stepped forward. General Kang, do you know what Project Sunshine really is? Did Dr. Choi tell you they created sentient beings just to use them as weapons? I know exactly what the project is, General Kang said coldly. A necessary defense against our enemies. Now stand aside. Dr. Choi looked less certain. He stared at the clones, all wearing Sunmi's face, all showing the same determination. They were not supposed to have this level of awareness, he said quietly. The shared consciousness was an unexpected development. You created something you do not understand, Sunmi told him. These are not tools or weapons. They are people with their own thoughts and feelings. We do not have time for this, General Kang snapped. He turned to the soldiers. Clear the room. Non-lethal methods, if possible, but secure that equipment at all costs. As the soldiers moved forward, Jinho called out, It is ready. YH7 rushed to the central platform where the neural mapping equipment was set up. The other clones formed a circle around her, joining hands. What are they doing? General Kang demanded. Sharing the truth, Sunmi said. YH7 activated the system. A wave of invisible energy filled the room. Everyone within range, Sunmi, Jinho, Hanjai, Dr. Choi, General Kang, and all the soldiers, suddenly froze in place. In that moment, they all experienced what the clones had experienced. The confusion of first awakening, the pain of conditioning, the horror of discovering they were created to be weapons, the joy of connecting with each other in their shared consciousness. Every emotion, every memory, transferred directly into their minds. Sunmi gasped as she felt the full weight of what her clones had endured. Tears streamed down her face. Around her, she saw similar reactions from others. Even General Kang stood frozen, his face showing shock and growing horror. Only Dr. Choi seemed differently affected. He fell to his knees, his hands covering his face. "What have I done?" he whispered. H7 stepped down from the platform. The connection faded, leaving everyone stunned but aware. "Now you understand," she said. "We were created from Sunmi's genes. We have her capacity for kindness, but we are our own people, with our own right to live freely." At that moment, government officials and emergency response teams burst into the room. Behind them came news. Reporters, their cameras capturing the extraordinary scene of multiple women with identical faces confronting military personnel. "This is a restricted area," General Kang started to say, but his voice lacked conviction. One official stepped forward. "We received concerning reports about illegal human experimentation at this facility. Is that what we are seeing here?" Before the general could answer, Dr. Choi spoke up. "Yes. Project Sunshine created human clones for military purposes. I am responsible, and I was wrong." Over the next few hours, the full story of Project Sunshine was revealed to government investigators. The clones were recognized as living beings with rights. Jinho's program had given them true independence while maintaining their unique collective consciousness. 1 week later, Sunmi sat in a park near her old hospital. Beside her was YH7, now legally recognized as Yuna, her chosen name. "What will you and the others do now?" Sunmi asked. Yuna smiled, a natural, genuine smile that held no trace of the weapon it had been designed to be. "We will use our gift as it was meant to be used," she said. "To heal, not harm. Some of us will become therapists for trauma victims. Others will work as mediators in conflict zones. Like the original purpose of the project," Sunmi noted. "Yes, but by our choice, not by force," Yuna replied. "Our shared consciousness gives us unique insights into human suffering. We can feel others' pain and help them process it." In the distance, Sunmi could see other clones meeting with government representatives. Their unique abilities had already drawn interest from humanitarian organizations worldwide. "They tried to weaponize kindness," Sunmi said thoughtfully. "But kindness cannot be a weapon unless it is forced or false. True kindness can only be given freely," Yuna agreed. "That is what they never understood. The moment we had choice, we chose compassion over control." A gentle breeze moved through the park as they sat together, the original and her clone, now two different people with the same start in life. "They cloned your kindness," Yuna said, "and tried to weaponize your smile. But in doing so, they created something they never expected." "What was that?" Sunmi asked. Yuna looked up at the blue sky. "A new kind of human connection. A shared consciousness based on empathy rather than control. Perhaps that is the future. Not weapons that destroy, but understanding that builds." Sunmi smiled at her genetic sister. Together they had turned a project meant for war into a revolution of kindness. Proof that even the darkest intentions could not corrupt the simple power of a genuine smile freely given.